putting handles on knives, or scaling a knife, as I like to say. And it's very, very popular these days. And basically, we're going to take a knife from a knife kit and add the handles. And there's easy ways to do this or hard ways to do that. And I like the easy way. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is the easy way to add handles like this onto any knife. First of all, when you look at knife kits, you're going to see two types. You're going to see a knife kit that all you have is the knife. You're going to see a knife kit that you have the knife, plus you also have a holster for it. So be governed accordingly. If you want to use this, and there's nothing wrong with this, you have to either make your own holster, or you can make one out of wood, or if anybody does leather working, they can make one out of leather for you. The business doesn't have a holster, or a sheath, as they say. Notice that this is called a Tang, and this is called an exposed Tang because you're going to see this from when you hold the handle. There's another kind of Tang that isn't exposed. It looks like the end of a file that you put into the handle, and it's just epoxied in place. So it's a hidden Tang. How neat are these knives? Well, let me show you this. My father made this one when he was 16 years old. That was 74 years ago. And this has seen better days. This is a hidden Tang. He made out of a piece of steel. He ground it, shaped the handle, add these little diamonds to it. Steel's not very good. It's a little bit too flexible. The handle, well, I mean, it looks nice. He soldered it, the connection here, where this little ring is. So it's covered. But to me, this is absolutely priceless. And this is passing down through the family. The stuff that you guys do should be like this, passed down through the family. And they become treasures. So every time I handle this, I'm handling the same knife my father handled. He gave to his father to look at, his mother to look at. So all they touch, this has been through the family for years and years. This means a lot. The stuff that you do is going to take that on. So you don't want to do it lightly. I also brought this one. This is the first one I made. And I keep it to remind me all the things I did wrong. Didn't come out nice, but that handle is way, way too thick. But I didn't know it. It felt good. Guy's got big hands. Yeah, this feels good. Yeah, this is way too thick. Also, you'll see here, there's this mark right in here on both sides. That's because I didn't learn about shaping this before you actually put the blade on. So the blade was on here when I was trying to turn it. I'll pass this around. This is kind of sharp, so be careful with this. But these are boo-boos. This is the same knife. Here's handled a little bit better, a little bit thinner. But it's the same knife. This is covered with tape up here because we have it on display, and people come out, and the first thing they do is take it out and go like this. And after one or two Band-Aids, we put tape on it. But this is the exact same knife. And the fellow made this Michael made this in our little class. So that's the knife that comes with this little bitty scabbard. Now the first knife, the handle's so fat that it won't fit in the scabbard. I can't take that around. This knife, let's see here. This should actually click in here. Just barely. So this one, I would take a little bit more off here too, and that would fit in here. So And let's see, there's going to be a couple different ways we're going to attach the scales to the knife itself. We can use epoxy. In this particular one, we can drill holes, and these comes with screws that hold this on. Or the other way is pins, and there's two types of pins. There's a pin that looks like a rivet, that one piece goes into the other piece, and there's just a straight pin, just stands straight up. And that's what you see in there, just this little metal pin that the whole thing the pins do is help hold the scales in place while we're gluing. So, how do we start? Pardon? That's all they're doing. Just as it keeps them from sliding around, so everything is lined up. So how do we begin? Well, the first thing we want to do is find a knife kit that we like. And then we want to have what we call scales. And those are these things. Now you can do one of two things. You can go up to the front of the store and you can buy them already cut like this. Or you can do what I do. You can go buy wood like this, take it to the bandsaw, and resaw it. So you get a couple pieces like this. If you're really good, you can get 3 pieces, but at least you're going to get 2. And then you cut them 5 inches long. So one of these, that's $4, will give you at least 2 sets of scales. So you're paying $2 a scale or $1 each, or you can go up and buy one of these for like $10. So this is a good way if you're going to make a lot of this stuff, just slicing yourself on a bandsaw like that one. So what we're going to need to do, let me just take, these are light color, easy to see. First thing we want to do is get this set up so that we can work on both sets of scales at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of these, I'm going to look which is the prettiest side, and I'm going to point the prettiest side to the outside. This is outside, this is outside. I'm going to take a piece of double-sided tape. And we're going to put one right here. Normally you want your blank to be about 1.5 inches this way, 5 inches this way, anywhere from 3/8 to 1/4 inch this way. 1/4 inch is probably better. 3/8 is not that bad, or something in between, because you're going to take a lot of this off. And when you bring them together, you're going to hold it for about 15 seconds. Helps the glue get a good bond. Okay. Now, what we need to do now is whatever knife we're going to use, we are going to place it over here and move this around so that it looks good at what we're trying to do. Now, knowing that in most knives, I'll pass this around, you've got a point right here and a point right here. And normally, this is where the handle is going to come in here. We're going to draw an arc between those 2 points. So we're going to use that later. But that means that we're going to have a nice little arc right here at the end of the handle. Okay. So what I wanted to do is make sure that the top of the arc is below this eye. I want to make sure all the tang is within the blank. Now, normally I use blue painter's tape for this, but we don't have any here right now. So I'm just going to use Scotch tape for the demo. I don't use Scotch tape in real life, but for today, this will be fine. So normally, please use blue painter's tape when you do this for a while. Okay, but you want it up something like this. Okay. So we're going to take our pencil and we're just going to outline the blade, and we're also going to make a mark where that arc comes in. If for some reason the wood we're using is too dark, a marking pen that's got light. So you can go white, but you need to make a good outline. We also want to mark where this is going to be right here. So this is what it's going to look like. Now, there's going to come a time when we have to decide, are we just going to epoxy this to handle, or are we going to drill holes? When it's like this is when you drill holes. I've tried to do it by marking it using center punches, make a mark half dead center, and invariably one of those bloody holes is off 1 or 2 thousandths, and that's enough so that the screw won't go in. So what we do now is we take a drill bit that's the same size as a hole. Now, how do we find that? If you take your box of drill bits, here. All you need to do, I'll wait till that comes around. All you need to do is just pick one. Always use the rear end of it. If it fits, go to the next size up. If it doesn't fit, you're done. Some people like to go this way. That's a good way to take off steel and really build that bit. So this is the size we've used to drill these holes. And what we would do is, I usually do this in class with 2 people. One person holds the blank and his partner actually runs the drill press. But you just go straight down all the way through the blank. And that way these holes have to line up. And this little hole all by itself here, that's just for a lanyard. And I used to do those, but now I don't. So I just don't even drill that, just cover it up with wood. Okay. Once you've drilled, we have to do to this before we take this blank apart. The first thing we need to do now is, since we've already got the holes drilled, is we need to take off this other tape. And we have to be very careful when we do that. So keep your thumb down here, pinch it tight, take that away, and we go back to our marking pen and just bring the line across, and bring the line across. And now we come over here, take this tape off. This is why I don't like Scotch tape. Keep breathing. And we're going to do the same thing. Thank you. And now I'm just going to make that same little curve right here. This isn't mission critical, just as long as you're kind of in the same general shape. But this is what we should be ending up with, and just picture there's 3 holes there. but that's what you want, okay? Now, what we normally do here is we go to the bandsaw. When we go to the bandsaw, all we're trying to do is leave that white line, because on this side of the white line, all the way around, is nothing but wood. On this side of the white line, as soon as you cross that white line, you're into steel. Steel is a whole lot harder to sand and takes a whole lot longer to sand than wood. So that's why we don't want to be in the steel. We want to have a little bit of wood proud so that we can sand everything down flat. Okay? So we go to the bandsaw and we cut out this shape. Now, once the shape is cut out, we're still not done with this, because what we need to do here, and I'm going to pass this around, is we need to make a shape. Now, knowing that this is going to get much thinner as it goes, but we need to make a round shape here. And what we need to do is take this shape all the way to the edge. So we would cut this out with a bandsaw first, then come back and start shaping this on the disc sander. And I'll show you how we're going to do it in just a second. But that's what we're looking for before we take it apart. Because once we put the blade in there, it's going to be real hard to get in there and sand it without really scratching the blade deeply. Absolutely. I like to use a 1/4 inch. That's my good general purpose blade for that. Now, this particular one right now has got a 1/2 inch in it. We used it the last class, but we used it because that was the shape, and there's really no hard curves. But if you were to get into a knife like this, with these little scallops, yeah, then you're going to need at least a 1/4 inch blade. And 10 teeth per inch is fine. It's easy to do. Just follow the white line. So what we know now is that we know that we need a bandsaw. Or if you don't have a bandsaw, you need to have something that cuts like a bandsaw. And that would be a coping saw, jigsaw, just something you can anchor it and come around that curve. But you really do need them to cut the shapes. Yeah, but if you did that from blank without cutting it first, get comfortable, get a cigar, get something to use it going. Yeah, you can cut it rough. You can also do, I'll show you guys in just a minute. So right now where we're at, we've got our blank, and we are going to work on the edge. Now, the easiest way to work on the edge is to cut it first, if this is on. This is what I need you to do. Leave the line just like that. Okay? If you can leave the line just like that, you are absolutely golden. Okay? And now when it comes to shaping this front part, the only thing we need to do is get it to where it's even right here. We can dress this up with a disc sander. Now you see there's just a little bit of that line left, okay? Because remember, the line was outside the steel. And now when we do this, we get it really close to the steel, okay? And now as for this part, this is gonna make a lot of noise. I might turn a dust collection off of this. going to do is we're going to keep doing this to bring the shape down until it's right on that line. Okay? We'll come back to this in just a little bit. Okay. So, when that's all said and done, what we're going to do is, what I like to do is take my little hammer and my little chisel. Nope, get over here. And just line this up. Now, I like to use double-sided, just regular double-sided tape. If you get double-sided turning tape, if you leave this on for more than 24 hours, it's permanent bond. Ask me how I know. Okay, well, let me just cover this. So this is going to be cut out. We've got two of these, and basically we're just going to attach this back up here. And this should be in the same general shape of this because we've already bandsawed it. So I've got two pieces here. Now the two pieces here are going to look like this. And what you'll see is you'll see steel, wood, and then steel underneath, and just all the way around. And so now we're going to shape this. And the best way to do this is use the power tools for general shaping, and then the hand tools for just regular shaping. So what I mean by that, let's say the nice part about what we're doing is that we can use all kinds of different tools, round ones and square ones and things like that. Let me get this one here. So I've already cut this in the bandsaw. It's kind of hand grenade close as far as the shape goes. Now the only difference here is normally I'd have a knife in here between the handles. But I can come now with this cabinet maker's rasp. I've got two sizes. I've got a coarse and a fine. And you can come in here and you can just I kind of like shaping wood this way because it's quiet in the shop. I don't have a lot of machines going on. I can have tunes going. Always got the cigar going. When we get close to the steel, we really don't want to use the rasp to scratch the steel because that's going to be really hard for us to get those marks out. But this can take us really close. And then I can come, and after the rasp, I come with a regular file. They take the marks of the rasp out. And then once I take the marks of the rasp out, this is when I go to sandpaper. You can use blocks. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. I like the sanding blocks. And what we're doing is with the rasp, we're taking wood off. With the files, we're taking out the rasp marks. With the sandpaper, we're taking out the file marks. But this is a great, pleasant way to spend an afternoon. And you can see how fast we actually made this nice gentle curve, which could be used for finger holes or things like that. So there's this, and these are the 3 tools that we use to do that. And you have how quick that was. If you want to pass those around, you're looking at. These are hand stitch rasps, which means they were made by hand. So the pattern is random. That's what you want, a random pattern. A machine rasp has them line up right behind each other. So those work well, but and there's more that you have to file to get the rasps marked out. So one thing I didn't go over is I didn't go over attaching the wood here to the Tang. There's 3 ways we can do it. We can use pins or rivets, or I should say pins. We can use screws or rivets, or we can just use epoxy. I've used them all. They all work exceedingly well. If they all work exceedingly well, and the easiest one to use is epoxy, why would you ever want to use something else? Because it makes it look prettier. We passed around this one knife with this stuff here. Get these nice metallic dots. These are some things that we have now. These are pins that we sell in the different sizes that you can find holes in the this is 6, this is 3, we also have a 4. But what we do with these is when you put these in there and use these as a pin, you cut them off, so about this long. For this one, you got to use a hacksaw. For this one, you can use a bolt cutter, but it squishes the ends, so I just use a hacksaw on this too, but I'll pass these around. So imagine where you see this, instead seeing something like this. It just takes it to the next level. Now, this is an example of a Tang that's got the rivets. Okay, I'll pass this around. I hate these. I don't use these. I take these out and throw them away, and I get those pins that I just are passing around now, and I put these pins in there. Okay, these just don't work, because what you have to do with this is you have to clamp them together while you're got the wood on both sides and the Tang moving around, and you've got to use a punch. So you've got a piece of steel up on one side and a piece of steel on the other. You're hit with a hammer trying to punch it. Nothing good ever comes of that. But this is one I use the pins on all the time, where I just use straight epoxy. This one here is the one we all looked at. I got this out because these are the pins that come with it that you saw. Just straight pins. You're going to hook them up from the bottom piece of wood. And you're going to put epoxy on the handle, not the wood, because the wood's going to be wider than the handle. Drop it down over the pins. Take your second piece of wood. You're going to epoxy the upper side. Drop that second piece over the pins. Wrap them up with tape. Give the epoxy however long it says to dry, and then you're ready to sand the handle in front. But that's what these pins look like. I like pins. I'll use the screws on this because we don't have to wait for the epoxy to dry in the class. But when I do knives for myself, I just use pins. Pins are just straight epoxy. I don't do the screws. I don't do the rivets. I think the pins are really all you need. And these new pins with these fancy designs really look nice. And they sand really, really well. So, if you're going to do this and you're going to make a lot of them, you want at least this. Because this is going to give you a big belt sander to shape. It's also going to give you a disc sander to shape. And I don't want to use this one. This is mine. Nope, this is mine. Yeah, it's mine. I've always hated this because this is just yucky. So we're going to make it un-yucky a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn on this big thing. Cal, can you do that? The little thing dangling, the button on the far right. Thank you. Normally, if you're doing this, I would tell you to put tape over the edge so you don't hurt yourself. Okay, just that little bit. We shaped the handle thinner. We gave a little places for your thumb to rest here, so this is just a more comfortable handle. Now here I'm going to, a little bit I'll come back for this, but you can see it doesn't take long. Where I touch the steel, I'm really not concerned because in that straight line, this is like a 60 grit on there now. I can change it to 100, then I can do 150, then I can do a 200. At 200, this is going to be bright like a mirror. But see, it doesn't take long with the right machines to get in here and do this. That is Bakuste. So what I like to do is I like to rough shape on these. This is good. This helps get into the finger hole. If I had to pick one of these above all others, it's this one. Because this big belt and that disc really allow me to do everything I need to do. But there's still more we can do with that, and I'm going to show you guys in just a second. Now, again, I used a 60 grit belt. This is a very rough sanding. You always come back with hand sanding. So I'd hand sand up to about 150. Now 150, 180 is where I stop with the sanding. So this is once you get the general stuff done and you go to sanding a regular hand tool, it becomes a very pleasant experience in the shop. And if you're making that for a particular individual, like I make, my wife loves to cook and she's got the chef knives and all these chopping knives. And I'll fit the handles to her. I'll roughly shape them. I'll bring them in. So to hold them, she'll go too thick here, too long here. I want to put the finger up here. And pretty soon it's perfect. She likes it. Put a finish on that. But that's it for her. That's you can do generic to you. You can do generic to anybody, or you can do specific to you or specific to anybody. That's the nice part about this when you custom fit the handle. Thank you. So here, I want to get in here, but you know, it's tough to get in here on this belt sander when the belt's the wrong size. So this is where the hand tools come in. So I can bring this open. Now, normally I don't use a rasp on this, but this is for this little demo here. But I'll just come right in here and I'll work this section here to round this over a little bit. If I want to get a better angle, I'll do this. And now I can come in here like this. And all we're doing is just trying to turn in a hard edge. So in the knife class, we've got people using these tools. We've got people using the power tools here. We've got people hand sanding. One of the things I like to do is I like to take a lathe and I'll put a spinning disc on that one. And then you can really shape this stuff off. And what I mean by that is if you put what's called a Jacob's chuck, what you see at the end of a drill press or a router, and you take something like this and attach it, or something like this, and these will also fit in your hand drills. If you have this spinning, you can get into all these little nooks and crannies really, really well with that spinning disc. So on a lathe, sanding this is child's play. If you don't have a lathe, you have to do it by hand, buy one of these things as a holder. Because I can get in here really well with this. The biggest question I get asked is, what shape is the handle supposed to be? And the answer, not being smart, is whatever you like, whatever's most comfortable. There is no set shape. It could be as long as you want. It could be as short as you want. If it's short, you might be leaving too much of the tang hanging at the end. If it's too long, it might not fit in your silverware drawer, and nobody likes it. But basically, there is a fast rule. One of the shapes I like, I always felt comfortable. I'll pass this around because we're close to that shape now. A Coke bottle shape. So I like it to be a little skinny towards the knife end, a little fat in the middle, and a little skinny towards the end. And sometimes I'll put flares in the front and flares in the back to keep your hand from sliding. So on this one here, you can see that we go in a little bit here and we go in a little bit here, and that keeps our fingers back here. So now if this tries to go forward, my fingers have to come apart. So that's good. Back here, where this part of it is, you've got this fat shape in the middle. It's cupped in the fat spot of your hand. When you try to pull it through this way, it's not going to go. You try to push it in this way, it's not going to go because of this. So these are just general shapes. It should feel comfortable in your hand. You can hold it, no sharp edges. There's two ways you're going to hold the knife. You're going to hold it this way, or you're going to hold it this way. This way, and slice, and this is what the cooks do. This is how the cooks hold their knives. This is how everybody else just holds their knife just for general knife work. If for some reason, if you are ever out anywhere and you see somebody with a knife and they're being aggressive, if they do this, be careful because they could hurt you. I wouldn't be really worried. I'd just be heading in the other direction. If they're doing this, they've watched too many late night movies and just punch them in the face and go. They're over holding a knife like this. Run as fast as you can, because these people know what they're doing and they will really hurt you. Okay? This is a danger sign. In police work, if we saw somebody do this, we shoot them. If we saw somebody do this, we try to reason with them. And if we saw somebody doing this, we'd probably just tear gas the hell out of them. Just get something that's very, very comfortable in your hand. And then we would work on the refinements. We would take finer sandpaper and finer sandpaper and just go to town that way. Now, what about a finish on a knife? Well, there's two types of finishes you can put on a knife. You can put what's called a film finish, and that's a finish that's going to lay on top. Or you can put on an oil finish. That's a finish that's actually going to go into the wood. And an oil finish is my finish of choice because, one, it's easy to do and it looks great. You can always sand and redo the finish if you want to. You only put on one coat because once the wood seals and the oil can't get into the wood, it just sits on top and turns into a sticky, gooey mess. Oil is outstanding. And to show you that, again, the nice part is if I sand this, I sand the oil off, don't care. because I can put more oil on. Remember, the oil is trapped in the wood, so it's in the wood particles. When we sand it, we're not sanding, getting oil everywhere, we're just getting sawdust everywhere. So, and you go to all kinds of different grits, different files. It's coming later, it's coming later. Any questions about anything we've talked about so far? No, no. I'll show you what I use. In fact, we'll put some on here. Cal, could you do me a favor? In that top box, white box up there, there should be a cloth. This is walnut oil. This is what I use. I absolutely love this stuff. It is one of the 3 oils that go in wood that hardens. Woodworkers use. Thank you, good friend. Now, knowing I'm doing this, but when I take this home, I'll be resanding this and doing all that good stuff with it. So, for right now. There you go. Now, what you want to do when the first time you put an oil finish on, pretend you own the oil factory, and you want this to saturate this blank. And basically, you want to, don't worry about the steel. It won't absorb into the steel, so when we wipe it off in a minute, we'll wipe it off the steel so we won't have a sticky, gooey mess. But this is what you should see. Everything should be wet. And what we're going to do is we're going to let it stay wet, just set it to the side, and give it 5 minutes by the clock. If after 5 minutes it's dry, we're going to put more oil on there. Give it 5 more minutes. Eventually, you're getting to the point where after 5 minutes, it still looks like it's wet. Take your rag and wipe it all off as best as you can, because anything that's going to be on the top is going to be turned into a sticky, gooey mess. Now, you're going to end up with an oily rag. Okay? Drape it over something like laundry. 24 hours later, when this is like cardboard, throw it away normally. But while it's wet, if you crinkle it up, as this goes through the process of hardening, it generates heat. And if you're in a small, cramped space like this, it can catch fire. So you always want to treat it like laundry, drape it over something, and when it's like cardboard, you throw it away. Any questions about anything we did today? It's a very, very simple process. And you got your choices of machetes. You've got your choices of kitchen knives. You've got your choices of general purpose hunting knives. There's all kinds of stuff out there that are available to us. Fairly inexpensive. This nice thing with the handle on it is on sale right now for 15 bucks. And I kind of like this thing with the scabbard on, because especially if you're, this is great and does a great job. I've made a lot of these. I find an old piece of wood, thank you. I do this. I've made hilts, I've made scabbards for this out of wood. It's fairly easy to do. Take a block of wood, trace out how deep you want this to go. And then when I do that on a block of wood, I will hold this block down. I'll take a little trim router. First I'll do the outside. Then I'll knock off the inside. Then I'll drill a little hole in one of the pieces, put a little tiny magnet in it, glue it together, sand it, shape it. You can put a little clip on here for a belt, and you can actually have a wooden holder. And it's really easy to do, and the little magnet on the side keeps it from flopping around, but yet you can draw it out easily. I've made a bunch of those. Those are easy to make too. Just depends on how deep you want to go into the hole. But it's not really hard. It's a fun project. And 75 years later, it could be a priceless treasure to your family. Think about you give your children something like this, and then when their grandparents, their grandkids are sitting, they're talking about you, remember the stuff like you're passing through the family. So it's a fun project. Any questions? Thank y'all. If you want to come up and look at any of this stuff, you're more than welcome. If you want to try those tools over there in a piece of wood, I'll be happy to set it up for you. But thank you.